Welcome back to Tartlecast. One of my favorite places to go is typically to the coast. I love seeing the ocean, that sweet saltwater air blasting my face in the middle of a storm. Considering, the deepest parts of my life as I walk barefoot on a beach. And while I think about the effects of my life, there are also other people on the coast that think about the effectiveness of institutions and education. And one of those professionals that we wanted to bring on today and leaders in that is Aeron Zentner. Aeron Zentner is currently the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness for Research Analytics, Accessibility, Planning, and Grants at the Coastline Community College in Fountain Valley, California. And we really want to dig into how data analytics and data itself is developing benchmarks for effectiveness within higher education itself. So, Aaron, thank you very much for joining us today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah. So, are you kidding me? Why not? Help me understand your history here and how this progression happened from writing this content at McGraw Hill as a contributing writer to being an editor at Sage Publishing, but carrying this thematic approach of big data and data analytics into what you're doing now at Coastline Community College.
Excellent. So I'll give kind of a progression of where I've been. And so I fell into the field of research back in 2008 as a research analyst. It's just a job I got by accident. It wasn't really where I was going or I thought I was going in life. I was starting with an associate's degree, going into a bachelor's, working through that. And then as I went through that, I became an analyst and moved up. And I was around 27 years old, 26 years old, and I became a director of research and effectiveness up north in California. And then after that, when I was 29, I became a dean overseeing research, analytics, planning, and the like. During that time frame, as I was going through in my career, I was asked to serve in a capacity of an editor in chief for a what do you say international wide project to teach data analytics to people who are not analytics majors. So you have to think of somebody who may be looking at an art major, maybe a different level business major, or even like considering another humanities, social science, and the like, who may not be working with data on a consistent basis. How do you really build that capacity in that individual? And so when I was working at Sage, what we put out and will be released this upcoming year is an experiential learning process where you take people through real life scenarios and how they can learn different data analytics skills. And so on Sage, that's what we actually built, was not just interactive media, but really learning engagement along the way. And I was able to partner with around 12 professors across the nation to really put, with their subject matter expertise, this project together and lead it. And we had a great team at Sage that did that. Also at McGraw Hill, I was able to be brought in as a subject matter expert to look at information systems, how big data platforms work, looking through an enterprise lens to say, what are various case studies, and conducting those case studies to really show the impact of what you can do with the data analytics, primarily in the field of big data and also data visualization, and how to build what we're really calling is data literacy across your organization. And so taking that back at Coastline, so I've been at Coastline for about 7 years as the dean. And I also teach data analytics and business law on the side. And so how do we bring what we're doing theoretically and building these technical frameworks and applying that at work? And so while everybody at work is not a data analyst, and they all bring different perspectives and a diverse mindset to the table, how do we leverage that to strengthen our effectiveness? And so what we did is, through my career, is really how do you build data and meet people where they are with that? Because not everyone's going to be a statistician, not everyone's going to be a programmer, and really taking that mindset. And we built out a variety of trainings such as data and donuts, just tacos and trainings, so many different things we brought together to help, like I said, engage people with data and really look at these different aspects of access, awareness, ability, and comfort. How do you make action? How do you analyze this data and really make it meaningful to them? Because if you hand somebody just some data that's not directly related to the work they're doing, how can that really impact their work and really drive them forward? So really, I've built a lot of what would you say, platforms and work around that just locally at our college, and really built out a data coaching program that's really scaled out to literally over 100 people going through this 4-week program at work, and really expanding what they're doing. So instead of going to a meeting and people talking on assumptions, it's really asking like what information facilitates or validates this, and really digging into that information and coming forward with that and really changing the culture of where I work. So that's a really broad perspective of the beginnings all the way to the current point.
So then let me ask then, what is you've created the platform, you have the engagement, subject matter experts are coming together to talk about this, publish information on it, including yourself. What is the why? Are you looking towards the future? Are you looking to maybe a problem that's been occurring in our past? What is the why for data being that driver in your view?
So I see data maybe not as the driver, but I see data as the tool that we can leverage and better understand our surroundings and actually try to learn from the future. And in my background in education, it's really focused in strategy and innovation. How can you make a decision when data doesn't exist? How do you build that mindset out and really expand and be effective in the future when you don't know what's in the future? But also in the living of the now is how can we understand what's around us, consume that information, and have that inform and drive facilitate what we're doing. So I think the why is that a lot of it, what I've seen and observed is a lot of individuals make decisions off of intuition, based on their observations around them, what's personally affecting them, their work, maybe a little bit beyond their department. But then when you have to look at the totality of things, if you make a decision and you have limited resources, as we all know across all industries, how can you effectively utilize those resources and make the most effective decision, that will have the highest level of impact? And so,
Aaron, whenever you look at bias, and you look at data and the way, especially when you look at large corporations, and they do these reports, they get all this data analytics, and then it, moves them. We've talked about this a ton of times. It moves them in a different direction, a marketing direction. What are you seeing with that bias, and how do you prevent that with the data that you're collecting?
So it's really the question that you're looking to have answered. I think that's where you really want to start with is the core. What are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to learn with that? And then really looking how the question is framed, and is the question biased in nature, and really looking at what you're trying to answer. And then based on that, you want to really expand that and broaden that aspect. So using the example that you gave with marketing and saying, hey, how are we going to modify our marketing strategy? What data can help us understand that? So is it the question on who we're serving, who we're not serving? Is our content fresh? What does that mean by fresh? And how do those different things really play into your marketing strategy? And then looking at consumer like media or information consumption behaviors, how does that frame what you're doing? Because we all know with the shifting mindset and social expectations being so agile all the time, especially just in the theme of marketing, you have to be able to say, okay, what's the next big thing? Because think about it, like a couple months ago, like cryptocurrency was like the big hot to trot thing. And if you get on board with that and try to relate to that with what you're producing, that's good for the now, but will it be good for the now in 8 months, 10 months, 16 months? Is that something you can really hook into? Or how does it relate to your core? How does it relate to the service or product or whatever that you're trying to produce, and how does it really tell your story and connect with people? I think individuals now, just in looking at consumer behavior, just in that aspect, if my question was the problem I was looking to solve with that, if to how to alleviate bias, is really looking at what's our mission, are we achieving that mission, what's the outcomes, and then what are we doing to continually sustain that, and then looking at those different factors with the marketing, how are we engaging that, not just product development but all the way through. And then those are a lot of the questions you want to have answered. And to alleviate the bias, sometimes bias is success is our own enemy. If we do everything the same way, and so therefore, everybody's loved this. So it's kind of like when you go back in time, you think about Ford. If you would ask the consumers, or you would ask the people before a car was invented, hey, what do you want to do? They'd be like, we need a faster horse, we need a bigger horse. And it's like, no, we need something different, and that's really what the mindset of the questions you want to answer. So if you're caught in the own bias of your own success and your own product, sometimes you can't continue to just re-innovate your product or your service. You have to expand beyond that to meet people where they are. And I think you see that a lot, at least in higher education, primarily with communications, where you have a group of individuals thinking what they know, what the consumer wants to see, and how they want to see information. So, for example, if you want to market out classes to students, your bias could be like, oh my God, I love getting text messages on my cell phone about this. Guess what? Nobody else does. That's the reality. But if you're not asking that, if you're not exploring that, if you're not exploring who your demographic is, who you're going after, what their consumption behaviors would be, then you're on your own bias. And we see that a lot around the room, like, oh my God, let's make a 14-minute YouTube video. How about make like a 10-second YouTube video? How about make a TikTok video? How about ask the individuals and really go down and explore that? And it's really being open to challenge your own preferences and biases. I think that would be my recommendation when addressing those types of situations is, while we may think and we may assume things, we have to remind ourselves those are our current assumptions, but it may not be the realities of today and tomorrow.
Yeah. Are you saying higher education is bias?
Yeah.
I think everyone's a bit
I know we
biased.
see some of that, just
Why
it's so
not?
funny how they do just with their branding, the name. It's like, well, this is this school and it's prestigious and you should go here.
Correct.
And it's like, well, how is it benefiting the student? How are they going to learn?
That's what I want to know. And when I think about Coastline, let me ask you a question. You're over here as the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness. You are saying that data, if we pay attention to it, can help us remove biases and make effective decisions. And you're with these other subject matter experts speaking about these frameworks for enterprises and other things. How effective is Coastline Community College? How effective are the students that come out of Coastline Community College? How effective are you guys in terms of your own benchmarks? If you are the subject matter experts on using data and Coastline Community College is trying to lead that effort, are you proving that? Like, how do you compare then, in a sense, to an Ivy League? And this is a difficult question, and I'm not trying to put you in a corner
It's
here.
all good. I think really looking at, there's a lot of variance or a lot of variables we can look at with where you're talking about effectiveness, and it's really looking at student performance and academic and achievement over time. Is it look at post-track graduation outcomes? When we measure a lot of things and we collect a lot of data. And so I'll give you a prime example. A lot of the times when someone wants to go and buy something or sign up for something, typically you want to know what the outcome would be. So say, for example, you're going to buy a box of brownies. You already know at the end, if you do everything right, you're going to have some delicious brownies. If you come to Coastline, based on if you complete a certain program, what career track, what transfer track it will lead to. And so what's the impact of that? So one of the things that we do to measure those outcomes is we do a student tracking process where we track them from when they graduate, when they complete a certain level of threshold of units at our college, and did they go on to a 4-year college? What's been the outcome of that? We've also done a lot of research studies, which we have in data dashboards I'm happy to share, looking at 3 years prior to enrolling. This is not just making up self-reported data. This is actually matching with true payroll records of individuals, working with like Equifax and all these other large entities where we can match that data at the individual entity level 3 years prior to and 3 years after, all the way up for one of the cohorts 6 years after graduation, to see where they are financially based on the degree path they chose. And so we're able to see what's been the trajectory of that, but then break that down by a demographic breakdown to say, are females and males performing at the same rate? Are different races performing at the same rate? What does that mean? What does that look like? And you're looking at that performance because not just how to improve your program, but then also to tell the students what their expectation will be. And I think that's something a lot of institutions forget is, what's the expectation? Kind of goes back to that brownie mix thing. Your expectation would be, if you mix everything up right, you're going to get brownies. If you come to Coastline, you go to this program, here's the median income of our true graduates over these last X amount of years, and here's how many are in this salary range, and using that to help gauge that so they have that expectation or build those relationships with our 4-year universities to say, here's the outcomes. Now, I think
I like that. Alex, you're right on point with this question. And I think this is interesting, Aeron, because you're saying your mission is, and a lot of community colleges get this wrong, but a lot of people, real life is a lot of people use the community college to get the 2-year degree to go on because it's less inexpensive. They may come from a middle-class family or whatever and not have that. So if you're understanding that as your core mission, then it's like, how can we prepare them if we're looking at the student first,
Yeah.
what is our data showing that we can, set them up for that right to go to the Yales or go to the Harvards or
You know, you define an expectation here, and the college is albeit observing these individuals and their outcomes. But what about the leading things that actually cause them to do a specific thing, like go to Coastline? Is that being analyzed so much as a function of the why? When I hear that somebody goes to a school to get a job, and then we put all these people into some sort of statistical curve to say that if you do this on this specific track, the probability of outcome will hit you within this specific medium bracket for whatever type of job. But what does that say to the actual specificity and character of that individual person? What if their expectation of life is different outside of what Coastline says is what should be your expectation of being here? How do you analyze then the unexpected? How do you analyze the less tangible, the why of that situation for those students?
So I like that question. It's a really good question. And so every year we ask almost every one of our, actually we do ask every one of our students a couple questions. We actually send a survey to understand their experience, quantitative and qualitative, where you can get like a scale of data on experience satisfaction, but really into the qualitative data, and also follow up with focus groups across varying things. So the first question we ask is, why did you choose Coastline? And what are your goals? We want to know. And even with a lot of our classes, one of the things that a lot of the studies we do locally, I try to name them kind of funny names just because they stick. But with those types of questions, so one study we just did for the last 2 semesters is called like the sticker shock idea. So imagine if you're a student. Now remember, put yourself 18, 27 years old, through that range, and you say, you sign up for classes the first time, and you get handed all this paperwork and all these academic terms. First day, what happens? Totally freak out, right? It's called sticker shock. And it's kind of like at the end when you're about to buy a car and you think it's like 19 grand and it's like then 32,000. So one of the things we tried to do with that is we reached out to students 2 to 3 weeks in advance, had the actual faculty member that would be teaching them reach out to them, send them their syllabus, a welcome message, and send them a short survey saying, I want to learn about you. What are your aspirations? What are your goals? Why are you taking this course, and how will it help you achieve those goals? All the faculty got that information back, right? And so then it would help tailor their classes, and then it helped build that connection or that feeling of belonging, and think about it. Under COVID-19, the majority of institutions were at a distance. And so with that mindset, how do you build that sense of community? Because guess what? A lot of the times when people are taking online, and Coastline's taught online for over 20 years, and 80% of what we do, we're one of the only 2-year public colleges in California. There's 116 of us that do primarily at a distance and online. We have 4 campuses throughout Orange County and just various places, very different institution. So really creating, we don't have the traditional like straight from high school to college. Like we have a lot of returning adults who take part-time. So how do you build that community with them? How do you build that sense of belonging? Based on a lot of those metrics, we're seeing that really leads to persistence and completion, as opposed to someone coming in, checking a few boxes and leaving. So really doing those studies and trying to understand our students, like you were asking, is how do you create that personalized experience, is really trying to help them through and guide them down that way, following up, not just saying answer a survey, but actually doing something about it. Developing our programming and services around that has been kind of the core of what we do. And I think really looking at the mission of our college, it's really simple of meeting students where they are. And if you think about that, not just with education, but meeting where they are in life, meeting where they are mentally with all the services, like physically, financially, meeting them where they are to achieve equitable outcomes. And I think that's the core. And when we have things like we just had a planning summit about a week and a half ago where everybody shows up online, streaming live to hear about the accomplishments and the plans moving forward. And it's something we're doing for about 6 years now. But everybody, without even being prompted, keeps tying back to those two concepts. And when you have a college or an organization that's really rooted in the concepts and believes in them of what you're going to do, you'll see that with the outcomes, the questions you ask. And I think for me, another thing that we do every time someone drops a class, there's a survey they're given. Before you can drop, you have to fill it out and saying, why are you leaving? Well, instead of just saving that data in some database somewhere, it's in a live dashboard. You can see by individual course, not by instructor, by course level. So like say freshman composition, why did students leave? What's going on with that? And then we started thinking, and here comes into the grants, is, just like an organization open 8 to 5, 5 days a week. What about the people who have to work? Think about it. You go to work all day. What do you do when you want to take a class? You need to talk to somebody. You can't. So we adopted artificial intelligence, which is going to be rolling out this next 6 months, to for students to provide real time services connected to our student information system, or if they need to upload documentation, they need frequently asked questions. The AI will automatically work and get them through, as opposed to waiting till Monday where they have to take a break from work or from their busy schedule or their family to do this. They can do it on their time. And as we roll out, and like I said, typical colleges like universities, they're really good. And like I said, the differences between 2-year and the 4-year R1 universities is a lot of research, a lot of more publishable research, and um, different types of research and grants that are being done out there, and it's phenomenal. And so you'll see that's the difference in what the outcomes and who they're producing, the degrees, so on and so forth. But
Yeah, but it seems like Aaron, that you guys are being extremely flexible in understanding the data, and then
yeah,
understanding your mission, and then because these programs you're talking about, you're just laying out program after program after program, survey after survey. Which at Tardo we love surveys, but
Yeah.
where a higher educational institute of 4-year, they are so ingrained in this old fashioned way of doing things to do AI to be able to meet somebody at 12 o'clock at night after they get off their shift. They're not going to do that. They're going to be like, we are this,
It's either
and
you
we are open from 8:30 to 4, and you can come in and have a conversation with
fit
us.
our model. You know what
Yes.
I mean? So I think that solution that data is affording you a perspective of flexibility that allows you guys to act and actually adapt to the changing social, emotional, and individual preferences of individuals that are coming and, essentially live and work with Coastline Community College.
correct. And you'll see a lot of institutions adopting these types of tools and frameworks as we move forward. We see a lot of 4 years doing it, but then, like you said, there's a lot of tradition that follows a lot of institutions. And sometimes when you're a smaller organization, you can be more agile, as opposed to being like those mega colleges where it's really hard to make that transitional shift. To say, if you want to adopt and adapt a new practice, it can be sprinkled throughout departments, programs, courses, and individuals. But moving an organization at that magnitude is really hard to do at scale. So you'll see that throughout just varying institutions. Some of the smaller ones are easier to move and adapt and adopt things, but
Do
you'll
you think
also
that'd be a shift in our education?
um, I think it will be. You'll start seeing. So Coastline is one of the 8 colleges of the 116 is doing something called we're on a new venture called competency based education. So currently, that's education on their own people's time in a flexible way to learn specific skills. And so for me, sorry for totally having to explain that. I just have to do it to make sure I'm on the same point. Um, but currently, it's all about for us is flexibility and meeting people at where they're at. And so right now, Coastline offers 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6 4-week classes. So once again, we're really trying to shape that up. But then when we go into competency based, it's actually like almost like self-paced work where you're going through a competency over time. We're learning how to do that right now. We just got another grant, like $500,000 to do that. And we just got another like 50,000 to help facilitate that. So over the next couple of years, to create the curriculum and work with our faculty to say, how do you teach a class? Like say what would be a good example? Like math and sociology and something else that would lead to a degree, but through a competency-based lens. Well, think about it through like English, like business writing for business, or technical writing, as opposed to just general composition. Very contextualized types of things. Like when we did this, they did this before. One of my friends did this with their science classes. Is they made science, but they made it like a cooking class because their program was reading to culinary arts. And so we're thinking about that with the first program we're doing is management. How do you contextualize things where people can learn skills over time at their point in time and graduate when they want to and when they can? You could do it all. If you bring in so say, for example, if you two were managers for like 10 years, you had this experience, you can whiz through these things because it's really testing your competency. And so a lot of colleges are looking to try to adopt competency based, because with a letter grade college, imagine you got like all these A's and then you just got F's in the last like 3 weeks. You're still going to pass, right? But do you know the material? With competency based, there's a threshold where you have to achieve a level of mastery in all areas. So say, for example, like I teach right now, I just got finished teaching like a SQL database development class. Everybody did amazing, and a lot of people did amazing in this more super advanced stuff, which I don't expect people to do just because it's super advanced their first time seeing it. But for the individuals that don't, with competency based, they can spend more time with beyond a 16-week schedule, or accelerate what they know and really focus on that to build and practice and strengthen those skills to reach that level of mastery. So it's a whole new mindset, and like I said, a whole new accreditation, and I'm over accreditation now. And so really looking at what's that going to be, and how, and there's a lot of organizations, institutions that do competency based, but like if you look at kind of like how Google has the new training, Amazon trains their own employees, like the whole system of higher education and education, how we learn our skills, is being disrupted. Think Udemy, think of edX, think of things like that, very self-paced. Now, some things aren't accredited. However, what they're finding is what are the most pertinent things that people need to know, and moving that forward and really teaching that skills-based model. So you'll see emergence probably over the next couple of years. While R1, R2 will always be focused on research, which is super important to the work that we all do. And I think what you'll see at the 2-year colleges is we're focusing on, how do you advance yourself in your career? How do you give yourself that leg up? What specific skills do you need? And we'll still have the traditional degree paths, but this is something else. Say, for example, if you're working in retail and you're like, I've been doing a lead position forever, but I want to be in this manager position. Do I spend 2 or 3 years in getting a certificate or a degree in management? Why don't you just come here for 6 months, learn the skills you need, and then move based on the abilities you have and the skills you can demonstrate, So it's really rethinking that whole model, and then how does that work with financial aid? How does that work with this? And so it's just a really fun time to be innovative and really rethink things.
I think you guys are a very interesting data laboratory, within higher education itself. And I do hope that this turns out for, the greater benefit in the future, and you start to really take these examples which you're leading by, and others begin to adopt them if they see that it truly is effective. And if somebody wants to find out about that effectiveness, and more about Coastline Community College and more about the subject matter experts, where would they go to do that?
I think you can easily go on our website, coastline.edu. You can go in, and we have a grant page. That's just one of the ones for our institutional effectiveness grant. It's called Innovation and Effectiveness. We have that. We have so many just different departments. Like, for example, for the longest time, we're still our Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense, where we're with hundreds of other colleges really leading the way of developing out new cyber professionals. And based on what you see in the news about how many individuals are getting hacked and all this other stuff, I think those are the things that are going to be the future. I think going on our website, if you're interested in what's happening in the trends, we have over 40 dashboards telling that story. We have a bunch of data reports, data projects, things of that magnitude. I think those are other ways you can learn about that. When the competency-based education rolls out, we're going to have a whole page and information on that, focus videos and the like. And so I think that's really where we're trying to share that information. We have social media channels, which are, I wish they were bigger. I know we have a decent sized following on LinkedIn, but those are a few things that you can follow and find out what we're doing on there.
Well, that's fantastic. And
it's fun.
Listen, I wish you in your position as the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness and Coastline Community College and all the students that come through there, the best of luck through this very flexible and quickly adapting process. And I hope to see more of you guys, popping up in the headlines soon with all the great things you're doing.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
No, most definitely. Well, listen, Aeron, thank you again for jumping on and speaking to us about what the future of education will, look like and how that will continue to evolve. And we hope to see others taking up that torch with you.
Excellent. Cool.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much for hanging out and talking today.